Why we fear our own depth. The philosophy of self-confrontation. The quiet night. It's past midnight. The world is quiet. You sit alone in a dim room, the soft hiss of silence pressing in. For the first time in a long day, there are no distractions, just you and your thoughts. A nervous tension builds with the darkness. You reach for your phone to fend it off, but the battery is dead. A single candle flickers on the table, and in its glow you catch a glimpse of your reflection in the window. Half lit and half in shadow, your own eyes gaze back, and you feel a strange urge to look away. Why is it so uncomfortable to be alone with ourselves like this? You're not the only one who feels this way. In one experiment, about 2/3 of men and 1/4 of women chose to give themselves mild electric shocks rather than sit quietly with their thoughts for 15 minutes. The researchers were astonished. Simply thinking in silence was so aversive that many preferred pain to the company of their own mind. It seems easier to face almost anything except the unfiltered depth of ourselves. But what are we so afraid we might find there? Why do we fear our own depth? The uncomfortable mirror. That uneasy feeling in the silent dark is a universal one. We often go to great lengths to avoid facing ourselves. The psychologist Carl Jung observed that people will do almost anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own souls. Indeed, when left alone with nothing but our thoughts, many of us instinctively reach for our phones, turn on the TV, or find some task, any distraction to fill the void. As one writer put it, we find distractions, even absurd ones, to avoid that quiet time when we might have to look inward. It's easier to scroll through trivial news or clean a messy kitchen at midnight than to confront the uncomfortable mirror of our own mind. In that mirror, we might catch sight of things we've been avoiding, old regrets, latent anxieties, weaknesses, or yearnings we've pushed aside. Rather than sit with those, we prefer to stay busy. We tell ourselves we're just passing time, but in truth we may be running from the reflection that waits in stillness. What is it about our reflection in that inner mirror that scares us so much? Perhaps deep down we sense that looking honestly at ourselves could bring pain or require change, and so we avert our eyes, leaving the chair of introspection empty. But the things we avoid do not disappear. They gather in the shadows of our mind, waiting. Shadows within. What exactly are we avoiding in that mirror? Often, it is the shadows within, the parts of ourselves we'd rather not see. In the quiet darkness, our buried feelings and hidden flaws begin to stir. Old guilt, simmering anger, fragile insecurities, unresolved grief. These lurk in the depths of our psyche like silhouettes in a dark room. We sense them there, and it unsettles us. We fear that if we peer too closely at ourselves, these shadows will leap into view and force us to confront pain. We might have to admit that we're still hurt by something we thought we'd forgotten, or that we envy a friend's success, or that we're not as okay as we pretend to be. These realizations can threaten the image we hold of ourselves. It's as if deep inside each of us lies a hidden stranger, or even a monster, an assemblage of our fears, shame, and darker impulses. Jungian psychology calls this the shadow self, the collection of traits and feelings we disown and push into the unconscious. We spend a lifetime casting this shadow behind us, out of view. But in moments of stillness, it stretches long on the wall before us. No wonder sitting alone with our thoughts can feel like being face to face with a stranger in the dark. Across cultures and history, stories echo this inner fear. In a Greek myth, the hero Theseus enters a labyrinth to face the ferocious Minotaur, a beast lurking in darkness at the maze's center. This ancient tale is a powerful metaphor. The labyrinth is our own mind, and the Minotaur represents those frightening, beastly aspects of ourselves that we keep hidden. To confront them, one must venture into the winding, uncertain passages of introspection. It's a daunting journey. Many of us hesitate at the labyrinth's entrance. What if the monster is too terrible to face? What if it overpowers us? These doubts whisper to us, keeping us at the threshold of self-knowledge. But if we never brave the maze, the Minotaur remains, haunting the corridors of our psyche. Facing our shadows is scary, but living forever in fear of them may be scarier still. Comfortable illusions. Sometimes it's not only the dark corners of our psyche that we fear, it's the blinding light of truth. We often cling to comfortable illusions about ourselves rather than face uncomfortable realities. This tendency was illustrated long ago in Plato's allegory of the cave. In that story, prisoners lived chained in a cave, mistaking shadows on the wall for reality. When one prisoner is freed and steps outside, the true sunlight hurts his eyes so badly that he would turn away and run back to what he is accustomed to, retreating to the familiar shadows he understands. The dazzling truth was too much at first. Like those prisoners, we can become attached to the shadows on our own cave walls, the familiar narratives we tell about who we are. We might believe, for example, I'm blameless for everything wrong in my life, or I'm fine, nothing bothers me, or even positive illusions like I've moved on from that heartbreak, when deep down we haven't. These beliefs cast comforting shadows that spare us from harsh light. If evidence to the contrary appears, say, a moment of honesty reveals a personal flaw or a lingering hurt, it's uncomfortable, even painful, to acknowledge. The light would hurt his eyes, and he would escape by turning away, back to the clearer, safer shadows. We too may instinctively turn away from clarity back to convenient half-truths about ourselves, because clarity carries responsibility. Maintaining illusions can feel safer in the moment. It allows us to avoid the difficult work of change or the sting of guilt and failure. But living in a comfortable illusion comes at a cost. It keeps us in a state of ignorance. The cave of shallow self-knowledge may be cozy, but it is confining. We can't grow or truly live within its walls. Deep down, a part of us knows this. That's why the idea of stepping out, though frightening, is also strangely compelling. It is said that the truth will set you free, but first it may make you flinch. Facing reality, who we really are, what we really feel, might burn at first, like stepping into bright sun from a dark cave. With time, though, our eyes adjust, and what was once blinding becomes illuminating. The question is, will we choose the freedom of truth or remain prisoners of comforting shadows? The masks we wear. Beyond our private illusions, there are the masks we wear for the world and for ourselves. We curate our identity, pleasant, acceptable, untroubled, and present that mask to avoid confronting what lies beneath. In public, we often show a confident smile even if we feel small. We say, "I'm okay," even when we're hurting. Over time, we can begin to mistake the mask for our true face. Removing it means exposing our real self, with all our vulnerabilities, to the light, and that prospect can be terrifying. We fear that without our masks, we'll have to confront feelings of inadequacy or the possibility that others might not accept us as we truly are. So we keep the mask on, even in front of the mirror, fooling ourselves along with everyone else. Yet, in the still moments alone, the mask slips. We catch sight of the face underneath, the one with worry lines, tear stains, or scars, and we flinch. Who is that more raw, unguarded self? We might realize we hardly know them because we've spent so long pretending. It's a lonely feeling to recognize that you've been a stranger to yourself, and it's scary to imagine introducing that stranger to the world. This is why self-confrontation is not just about facing inner bad feelings. It's about daring to drop our personas and be authentic. When we remove the masks, we must confront the gap between the life we're living and the life we inwardly desire, between the person we pretend to be and the person we are. That confrontation can lead to tough questions. Am I living in alignment with my true values? What if people see the real me and don't like it? These uncertainties make the mask feel safer, but the mask is a barrier. It protects, yet it also imprisons. To really know ourselves, we have to risk taking it off. Only then can we begin to reconcile who we show to the world with who we are inside. Afraid of the light. Up to now, we've focused on the fear of our darkness, but paradoxically, we're often afraid of our light as well. We don't only shrink from our demons, sometimes we also shrink from our greatness. The writer Marianne Williamson captured this idea vividly. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, talented, or extraordinary? The prospect of discovering good things about ourselves, grand ambitions, unusual talents, inner wisdom, can be as daunting as uncovering our flaws. Why? Because if we acknowledge our own potential, then we might feel compelled to act on it, to live bigger lives, to pursue our dreams. And stepping into that brighter arena means risk. It could mean changing careers, ending comfortable routines, challenging other people's expectations of us. It means responsibility. In a way, it's easier to believe I'm just not that special or I couldn't possibly do that and stay in the safe shadows than to recognize a bright capacity within and risk failure or rejection by bringing it out into the world. In everyday life, this might manifest as subtly sabotaging opportunities or downplaying our capabilities. We might avoid writing that book we always wanted to, not just because we doubt our skill, but because part of us fears what success, our light, would demand. New challenges, attention, the pressure to live up to our potential every day. Remaining small feels safer. It lets us avoid the glaring spotlight of our own possibilities. But as Williamson reminds us, your playing small doesn't serve the world. Dimming our light doesn't truly protect us or others. It only keeps us unfulfilled. Just as we need courage to face our inner darkness, we need courage to embrace our inner light, our talents, our passions, our capacity for love and change. Self-confrontation involves owning all that we are, the bad and the good, the weakness and the power. Both can be frightening. You might discover you're not who you thought you were. Perhaps you're more. And that means rewriting your story. It's a lot to take in. No wonder we so often choose to live in the half-light, neither too miserable nor too brilliant. But a half-lit life, safe as it seems, pales in comparison to the vivid fullness that comes when we stop fearing our own depth and start living it. The decision to dive. Eventually, there comes a moment of decision. After so long running and avoiding, we stand at a crossroads, continue to live in shallow waters, or gather our courage and dive into our own depth. Perhaps the discomfort of avoidance grows too heavy, or our curiosity about who we really are becomes too strong to ignore. Perhaps life pushes us. A crisis, a loss, an upheaval leaves us no choice but to face ourselves. However it happens, imagine reaching that threshold and saying, "Enough. No more running." You take a deep breath and prepare to meet whatever lurks inside, come what may. This is a quiet yet profound turning point. It's the resolve to shine a light in the dark attic of your mind, or to descend into the deep waters of your psyche, knowing you may not like what you find, but understanding that you can no longer live in fear of it. At this moment, you might recall that wise warning from Carl Jung. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Accepting oneself, whole, without illusions or excuses, is indeed terrifying. It means confronting all that is inside you, the painful memories, the disappointments, the capacity for anger or selfishness, but also the buried potential and goodness you've denied. It means saying, "This is me in my entirety." That's a daunting leap. But consider the alternative, continuing to flee from yourself indefinitely. Jung also noted an unsettling truth about avoidance. The longer we avoid it, the more power our unconscious self gains to control the direction of our lives. In other words, what we don't face in ourselves does not remain idle. It operates behind the scenes, influencing our moods, decisions, and relationships in ways we don't realize. By refusing to look at our depth, we let our unexamined fears and desires silently pull the strings. Realizing this, you might feel a surge of determination. By confronting yourself, you're taking back the reins of your life. Yes, it's terrifying to accept yourself completely, but perhaps it's even more terrifying to remain a stranger pulled by invisible forces from within. So you decide to dive. This decision isn't loud or dramatic. It often comes in a quiet, resolute moment. Perhaps tonight you put down the phone and let the silence envelop you. Perhaps you open a journal and start writing truths you've avoided. Or you make an appointment with a therapist, or simply sit and allow yourself to feel whatever comes. Your heart may pound and your hands may tremble, but you're doing it. You're turning to face the shadows instead of turning away. Like a person standing at the edge of a dark, vast ocean at night, you choose to step forward and plunge in, not knowing what you'll meet, but knowing that whatever it is yours and it's time to face it. This is the courageous act of self-confrontation, the point where fear of the unknown is overcome by an even greater urge for truth and wholeness. Into the abyss. You dive. Suddenly, you are into the abyss of your own soul, and it is as intense as you imagined. Sit in the silence long enough, and the once avoided thoughts and emotions begin to surge up like waves. You might feel an initial rush of anxiety, your mind racing with worries and old memories. It's like plunging into cold, deep water, a shock to the system. You may feel yourself flailing at first, not sure how to navigate these depths. In this moment of confrontation, all the things you buried clamor for your attention. Perhaps regret for past mistakes tightens like a knot in your chest. Perhaps anger that you've suppressed for years roars within, finally given voice. You could find tears streaming down your face without fully understanding why, as sorrow long held back is finally acknowledged. Or you might feel raw fear that seems to have no object, just a general dread now unmasked. This is the storm before the calm. It's painful and disorienting. As you venture deeper, you might encounter specific visions from your life. The face of someone you hurt or who hurt you, appearing vividly in your mind's eye. The memory of a humiliating failure you tried to forget. The realization of how certain patterns in your relationships trace back to childhood wounds. Each revelation can jolt you. It may feel as though you're being pulled down by an undercurrent of emotions. At times, you might think, I can't handle this. You understand now why you were afraid. This hurts. The temptation to escape, to climb out and slam the door shut on all this, is strong. In the thick of this experience, Nietzsche's warning resonates. If you gaze for long into an abyss, the abyss gazes also into you. Peering into your inner abyss, you may start to sense the abyss looking back, as if your darkest fears and pains are not passive objects, but active presences confronting you in return. It can feel like the grief or anger takes on a life of its own, staring you down. You might worry, will I be consumed by this? It's a critical juncture. Many people do turn back at this point, frightened by the intensity of their feelings. But if you persevere a little longer, something remarkable begins to happen. The chaos doesn't immediately vanish, but you realize you are surviving it. The waves of emotion crest and break. You're still here, breathing. The act of looking into the abyss, staying with your pain and darkness, has not destroyed you. Instead, it's beginning to transform you. In confronting these raw truths, you are already changing your relationship to them. What was once a nameless dread in the shadows is now an experience you are witnessing and owning. It's still hard, but it's no longer utterly unknown. Piece by piece, the outline of your inner landscape emerges, even in the darkness. You start to discern shapes. This is fear, this is regret, here is loneliness. By naming them, you begin to rob them of their faceless terror. The abyss, which loomed boundless, starts to reveal its contents, and they are human, understandable, even forgivable. Rising from the depths. After the tempest, a turning point is reached. You find that you are no longer sinking, but rising. The waters begin to calm. In the stillness after your tears and cries, a new clarity emerges. It's as if your eyes have adjusted to the darkness, and now you can see shapes and outlines that were always there. Recall the allegory of the cave. Once the prisoner's eyes adjust, gradually he can see the reflections, and then later see the objects themselves. Eventually, he is able to look upon the sun itself. In your own inner cave, this means you start to truly understand the feelings and experiences you just confronted. What was overwhelming chaos moments ago is now coming into focus as intelligible insight. You see, perhaps, that your intense anger at a friend was hiding a deeper hurt of feeling unappreciated. You realize that the monster you feared, a crippling sense of failure, is actually just a part of you that strives for growth and was wounded when you fell short. Not an evil force, but a hurt child that needs compassion. The shapes of your inner landscape become clearer. Here is fear, but you see it's trying to protect you. Here is grief, which speaks to how deeply you cared. Here is loneliness, which shows you the value of connection. Each shadow, when faced, reveals its face and its reason for being. In this discovery there is pain, yes, but also relief. Like finally meeting yourself honestly after years of avoidance. You begin to feel a sense of integration. Those parts of you that you fled from are now becoming part of your story. They are no longer as frightening because you've acknowledged them. In fact, you may start to feel a strange tenderness toward them. You understand yourself better, the origins of your insecurities, the truth of your strengths, the needs you've long ignored. It's as if you've descended into a cluttered, dusty basement and, rather than finding ghosts, you've found boxes of old letters and photographs, pieces of your life that you can now sort through and make peace with. Everything you've tried to bury is a clue to self-awareness, self-enlightenment, and integrating all of yourself, as one observer noted. By digging up those clues, you're piecing together a more complete picture of who you are. The very act of facing these buried parts is how you reclaim them. This process also uncovers treasures amidst the wreckage. Perhaps in confronting a lost dream, you feel a spark of inspiration to try again. In mourning an old loss, you rediscover the depth of your capacity to love. In admitting a weakness, you finally give yourself permission to get help or to grow. Ironically, the deep dive that you feared would destroy you is making you stronger and more whole. You surface from the depths not with monsters clutching at you, but with newfound truths cradled in your arms. You have gone into your personal underworld and, like many mythic heroes before, you return with a gift, self-knowledge. It may not be a neatly wrapped gift. Perhaps it's a bittersweet understanding or resolve to change, but it is precious. The fear that once held you by the throat begins to ease into respect. You faced the dragon and stole its fire. You confronted the darkness and made it conscious, and in doing so, you have liberated a bit more of your own light. Now, standing on solid ground again, you feel different. Exhausted but clear-headed, humbled but empowered. The dawn inside has broken, embracing the depth. Dawn has arrived both outside and within. In the newfound light, you come to a gentle realization. The depth you once feared is home to both your darkest shadows and your brightest possibilities. And neither is to be feared, but rather understood and embraced. You have confronted the dragons of your past and the specters of your fears, and found that, ultimately, they are part of you, and thus within your capacity to face. This journey of self-confrontation is not a one-time event, but a lifelong practice. There will be other midnights and other shadows, but having braved your inner depths once, you know the way. You know that silence can be illuminating, not just terrifying. You know now that when you feel restless or uneasy at your own company, it may be a sign that something inside is asking to be heard, not a signal to run away. The philosopher Socrates famously said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." Now these words resonate with new meaning. A life where we never pause to know ourselves, where we perpetually flee our own presence, is a life only half-lived. By examining ourselves, gently, honestly, bravely, we enrich our existence immeasurably. It doesn't mean a life without pain, but it means a life with meaning. The pains and joys are truly ours because we've faced them. The unexamined life may feel easier day to day, but in the end, it is like skipping the pages of your own story. You never fully understand the main character. To examine life, to examine oneself, is to read every chapter, even the difficult ones, and in doing so, discover the depth and nuance that make the story worthwhile. As you sit in the morning light, you feel a calm that was absent during the night's turmoil. It's not that all your problems have vanished, but they've become clearer and more approachable. You might even feel a hint of pride. You did what was hard. You met yourself in the mirror and did not look away. There's a quiet confidence growing from that achievement. The face in the mirror is now a familiar friend, not a frightening stranger. The shadows in the room are just shadows, not monsters, because you've shone light on what they really are. Yes, some fear may linger. You are human after all. But it's a healthy fear, one that signals respect for the depth of the soul rather than abject terror. It reminds you that going deep is serious work, but not impossible. In embracing your depth, you also develop greater empathy for yourself and for others. You see how everyone carries shadows and light within them, and many are simply afraid as you were. Your journey has cultivated compassion. The next time you encounter that midnight silence, you might still feel a twinge of unease, but now you know there's nothing lurking in you that you cannot face, given patience and courage. You might even welcome those quiet moments as opportunities to listen to your inner self, to tend to any neglected corners of your heart. As the sun fully rises, casting a warm glow through your window, you understand that confronting yourself was one of the most important steps you've ever taken. It's the start of a more authentic life. No longer ruled by unknown forces in your unconscious, you can make choices with clarity. No longer terrified of being alone with your thoughts, you find a new freedom in solitude, a chance to recharge and reflect. The depth that once evoked fear now inspires curiosity and respect. It is your inner cosmos, as vast and rich as the night sky, and it's yours to explore rather than run from. Ultimately, why do we fear our own depth? Because it contains the truth of who we are, and truth can be scary. But as you've seen, that truth, however challenging, also holds the key to our freedom. Embracing it, we reclaim all the pieces of ourselves. The journey inward, with all its perils, reward us with wholeness. To confront oneself is the brave act of turning fear into self-understanding, and self-understanding into self-acceptance. And with self-acceptance comes a profound peace. As you rise and open the window to a fresh day, you do so as someone who has faced the night within and emerged into the light of dawn. This is the quiet triumph of self-confrontation. Not a trophy on a shelf, but a soul that is awake, aware, and unafraid to live deeply.